Welcome, and thank you all for joining us this episode of the Crexi Podcast, an insider's look at all things commercial real estate. In this show, we'll cover a broad range of topics that both cater to CRE newcomers and industry leaders alike. I'm your host today, Lilah Abrams. I'm a marketing operations manager here at Crexi, a comprehensive digital commercial real estate platform designed to empower all CRE professionals with tools they need to discover and transact property. The Crexi Podcast hopes to provide more of a window into the inner workings of commercial real estate for this generation and the next. Today, we are thrilled to sit down with Courtney Ettus, Chief Marketing Officer here at Crexi, and full disclosure, my boss. Courtney leads Crexi's marketing initiative. Courtney leads Crexi's marketing initiatives with over 25 plus years of experience in marketing and strategy. She joined the team in 2018, where previously she served as CMO of Greenfly Inc., a venture-backed SaaS content platform. For over 10 years, Courtney led the global media businesses for Visa, Luxottica, Beats by Dre, and Bank of America, among dozens of others. She also led global marketing for Kenneth Cole Productions, Inc. for 10 years, running their in-house marketing agency. Courtney achieved her BA in psychology from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and her BA in executive management from Babson College. Courtney, welcome to the podcast. Let's dive into it.
Oh my God. It makes me sound like I'm 100 years old.
Not even. Look at you. So I guess let's just dive right in.
Let's do it.
So I'd love for you to kind of speak to your experience in marketing and how you really found yourself in the world of CRE to begin with.
Wow, what a great question. I put myself through school back in the day and I got my degree in psychology. And I think anybody who has their degree in psychology is genuinely a curious person. And I've always been very curious about what motivates people and what drives them to make the choices that they do. So one of my random jobs in college was working in a shoe store. And because of that, I ended up meeting Kenneth Cole. And when I moved to New York, he said, look me up and I'll give you a job. And he actually made good on his word. And met him and got started in the men's footwear division with him, and then very quickly realized that we weren't giving our customers good content, quite frankly, images, pictures of shoes. We were doing drawings of things that nobody could really understand what the finished product would look like. And I went to him and I said, I think we could be doing this better. And he said, okay. And so from there, I sort of found my way into the marketing department, and he created a position for me. And I spent 10 years really working on what we were doing and creating marketing across dozens of categories. So after 10 years of that, moved to Chicago and found myself on the agency side of the business, running global media for big media agencies and their clients. So that's the Visas and Luxotticas and Beats by Dre. Same thing, right? So I had 10 years in footwear, never thought, and fashion at that point, I never thought that I would be running big corporate businesses for banking and finance and Luxottica was sort of a gimme, and consumer electronics. And the reality is, same thing. We used to say at Kenneth Cole all the time, people buy a pair of black pants. Why do they want to buy a pair of ours? And it's the same thing for every other consumer goods business, and quite frankly, any B2B business as well. So when you think about that, you think about what motivates people, where you can reach them when they're thinking about that decision making, and what the psychology of the person is, more than you're really thinking about the product, just the product alone that you're selling. And then you take those thought processes and you figure out what differentiates your product from other products. And it could be branding, it could be quality, it could be so many of those different things. And figuring out what motivated people and how to connect with them, and the messaging that would connect to play into those different, or to take advantage, quite frankly, which is what marketing does, take advantage of those different thought processes, was really, really interesting. So from there, spent 10 years running global media businesses, and then felt like I was just running businesses and really wanted to get back to marketing and sort of the core of what I loved the most. And so I was, I, So I had the opportunity to work with a guy named Troy Carter, who's very famous in the music management business, and he hired me to start a cultural strategy agency with him. And we worked with brands on what was happening in culture, and that was fascinating. But even more fascinating was my role there, where I was able to my role there, where I was able to actually serve as the de facto CMO for all of his portfolio companies. And I was so invigorated and energized by working with these startups, helping them figure out what their value propositions were, helping them figure out why they existed, helping them differentiate themselves from the competition, or even creating a marketplace for them. And so with that, I ended up going to Greenfly, who I had met through that position, and they asked me to be their CMO, and I was like, "This is amazing." It was a brand and a product that I really stood behind. So I was with them for a while. I then started my own consulting company. I had a lot of inbound people coming to me asking for advice, and it just made so much sense for me to be able to, turn that into a business of sorts. So I consulted in areas like crypto, and just some other, sort of interesting areas that, again, I was not an expert in these industries, but I was an expert at figuring out and have been an expert at figuring out what motivates people to make the choices that they make and how to reach them in the best possible way. And that's what we do in marketing. I was then introduced to Mike from a mutual friend and never thought I would end up in commercial real estate. Didn't know a ton about it. But the more and more I talked to Mike and really the senior leadership team at Crexi and met more people from Crexi, the more I understood the vision, and the desire to create an industry and transform an industry that had functioned in the same way for decades and decades into something that was accessible to all. Um, what I haven't shared yet is that I really, philanthropy is a big part of what I do. I've worked on the board of God's Love We Deliver in New York, Greater Chicago Food Depository, volunteered out here for Westside Food Clinic, try to give back as much as I can, have that as a very big part of my life and my kids' lives, my family's lives, my husband's too. And volunteered, and it's a very big part of our family life. And so, with philanthropy comes opportunity. And I really saw how Mike was looking at the opportunity to evolve commercial real estate. And that got me incredibly excited. And I think it took about a week from my first meeting to actually signing on the dotted line. So here we are, 2.5 years later. So that
Here we
covered a
are.
lot, about consumer products, corporate, and SaaS, but that's sort of my journey to date. And I'm halfway through this decade and loving it.
Yes, you are loving it. No, I think that's really interesting. I mean, it's interesting to hear your take on the sort of commonalities between the industry that we're all in now, being CRE, and across all the industries that you've worked in the past, and the psychology aspect as well. I was also a psych major, so
I know that. It's one of the reasons we get along so well. The one thing I will add is I think the biggest turning point was the very first business that I worked on, in the agency world in Chicago, was BP, so British
Mhm.
Petroleum. And we worked across, and trust me when I tell you, I was absolutely out of my comfort zone on that. I went from fashion for 10 years to working in an agency, never having worked in an agency. I was 3 months pregnant when I started, and I was running a business that I'd never worked on, which, we call energy, but was really big oil, which probably you should cut that because it's terrible. Or maybe not because it's interesting. But I was working on BP, which it was an energy company, but a big oil company. And one of the things that we dealt with at the time was, a broad swath of targets. Right, there are a lot
Mm.
of people that we were talking to about a lot of different things, and so we had, Castro Motor Oil and Walmart. And so, how do we market in Walmart, and how do we talk to people who are coming in and changing their own oil,
Right.
to the BP gas station owners, to people that were, on Capitol Hill and writing policy. And the one thing that I consistently said to my team is that the same people that are writing policy on Capitol Hill are still driving cars home, and what motivates them to, make a decision to go to a BP station, or a competitor. And that's when you start thinking about, there's so many mindsets of people and how to target people, and there's so many opportunities to connect with people at different times. What you're doing during your workday is different than what you do in your car ride to work or your car ride home. So, I think there's a lot of different ways of thinking about people versus just the product that you're pushing out there.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a really good point. So I guess kind of jumping off from there, looking back, how do you think property owners have historically marketed their properties specifically?
How property owners have historically marketed their properties is one of the biggest reasons why I joined Corexy. Even before I started, Mike and I were having a conversation about the old adage in commercial real estate that in the very beginning you could find the buyer to your property by standing on the roof and shouting, and they would hear you. And so it was so interesting to me that it was very insular and very relationship based, and that was fine because the people that were buying and selling were in a particular market, period. But with the, introduction, if you will, which sounds ridiculous at this point, but the introduction of the internet and the availability to information, people were really able to have different types of asset classes that they wanted to buy, sell, trade, and be involved in. And they could find those asset classes far outside just their community. So it was really interesting for me to understand how we could digitally solve for any issues that people were having, how we could provide them with information, how we could, again, democratize and put all of the inventory online for people to have access to. So it wasn't just what they happened to see or hear or read in the paper, but also a whole repository of different asset classes and types of properties that people could buy and lease. I think that we're finding people online. I mean, first and foremost, back to this conversation we were just having, or the point that we were just making, it's about, while it is about relationships still, and there are some brokers who will bring buyers to the table or tenants to the space. It really is about being online, being in front of people when they're getting information, marketing properties in a different way. We at Crexi have done some incredible work with Gmail advertising, right? So finding people in places where they wouldn't expect it. And that's not an email that goes in. Those are the ads that pop up at the top of your email. We've done some great work and had some great leads through connected TV. Everybody's streaming. We're in the middle of a pandemic. And so we are finding that reaching people where they are in a more interesting way has been great. And we've got a lot of leads and a lot of business from talking about the power of Crexi and doing all of your deal in one place and keeping everything organized and being able to reach out to people and keeping track of leads and marketing. So market manage everything in one place. And maybe people have or haven't known about us, but the response that we're getting when we're running different kinds of advertising and not just your traditional advertising has been really impactful. And we've seen
Mm.
great results on both sides of the business.
Hmm. So what kind of trends do you think have had kind of more of a successful foothold in the world of B2B marketing?
I think there are so many different technologies and ways to reach people that when you talk about trends, I'll go back to what I said at the beginning, which is it's incredibly important to reach people with a message that resonates at a particular time that based upon what they're doing. And so, technology enables us to run connected TV, to run digital ads, to mail things to people,
Mhm.
to send, we've had some success sending branded items out during this time period because we know people are sitting at home and they're getting packages every day. So I think, there are different there are different avenues or paths that you can take and different channels that you can use depending on the time period, depending on what's happening in the world. And if you know that people's inboxes are getting flooded, what do you have to do outside of
Mm.
that to reach them in a different way? I also think multi-screen, the world of multi-screens and where people are constantly on additional screens over and over again at the same time is fascinating. So what technology does is it lets us actually follow you between your screens. So if you're on a website and we've served you an ad there, then we might be the next commercial you see also. And we might be the next commercial that you see on on your phone. And so because of all of this connectivity, which I do think will change, but because of this, people are really getting exposed to the information that they need to make the right decisions.
I love that you brought that up. Do you think that that's the marketing strategy that you're most personally excited about at the moment, or is there something else you can identify?
Without spilling all of the beans.
Yes.
Um, I think the digital companies are doing a lot to take away things like cookies and take away things that enable advertisers to follow you around. So I honestly think that there's going to be a new shift in advertising in the
Mm,
future across all industries. And we're all going to have to relook and rethink at the ways that we're talking to people and about what. There'll always be some way to target people, but this sort of big brother following people around is going to get a lot more difficult or a lot less specific. So there was a big push, or there has been a big push to what we call one-to-one marketing in omni-channel. So for the non-marketers out there, they're like, "What's that?" It's literally us creating a message that is specific to an individual person where it feels like we're talking directly to you about something that you're interested in. And there's technology that enable us to have 8,000 ads out there to different people, but in the same ad campaign across omni-channel means different channels. So it could be digital, connected TV, it could be, radio, it could be a million different places. And so, because of the way that marketing is moving, it's almost moving backwards a bit. There's still a level of sophistication that we can't ignore, but it is definitely moving into a place where we have to rethink how that connectivity works to our advantage today, and
mm,
figure out how to go back a little bit. So instead of one to one, it's one to several.
mm. Fascinating. So here's a fun one for you. If we're going to bring it back specifically to the CRE realm,
Mhm.
so which one of these sort of tactics or strategies have you seen being applied through or by CRE organizations, and sort of, to what extent and to what levels of success?
So I think property marketing will always be the way that we have to operate. At the end of the day, people are buying or selling or leasing, transacting on asset classes, different assets in different spaces, and that will always work. How we do that and who we reach with that messaging will always be. There's some really big players in CRE that we found to be exceptional partners. I
Mhm.
think where it gets interesting is when you go outside of traditional CRE, how we start thinking about, we're not a CRE company, we're a tech company. And how does that tech help move the world's largest asset class, which is CRE? And so I think TV has been really interesting. So this idea of connected TV, where you're forced to watch ads on streaming, and if they're entertaining, they're great, and if they're not, they're horrible. So if we can entertain some people when they're sitting there, before they're getting up for their bathroom break, it's a very similar conversation that we were having in the 90s, before there was this internet of things and people had to watch commercials, and and you had to watch a show at a particular time. So when I say we've gone back a little bit, there's some
Mm.
considerations that we had 25 years ago that we're taking into consideration now.
Definitely. Personally, I love the fact that technology is catering to me all the things that I want and desire.
I know, right? Me too.
So, cookies all day. Thank you very much. So, obviously, we have to talk about COVID-19. Still very much a topic in a lot of people's minds, and how it really, upended the way that commercial real estate professionals are and were transacting business over the past year. Marketing is very much a part of that. So, I'd love to pick your brain a bit about, some of the biggest ways that the pandemic actually impacted how CRE pros market their assets.
I mean, I think having to not, I do not think that COVID-19 was a blessing in disguise, but I do think that the fact that some of the world shut down forced people to embrace technology more than they have before, and forced people to rethink the way they've traditionally done business. I was listening to NPR yesterday, and they had a statistic that one out of every five people have completely changed careers
Wow.
during this time. So 20% of people have completely changed careers, and another 30% of people, sorry, another three fifths, so another 60% of people have pivoted their current careers. So if you've got 80% of the workforce changing the way that they're working, everybody is doing it. And I think for commercial real estate, which has traditionally functioned in a very specific way with very specific players, having the opportunity to really embrace technology and new ways of marketing, even if they're not net new to the world, but they're net new to commercial real estate, has really created an opportunity for the overall marketplace. The other thing I'll add is, I think what's interesting is there are a lot of young people in commercial real estate.
Hmm.
And when we think about young people embracing technology, it's sort of like a no duh moment, right? And so the fact that we're able to make transactions happen faster, connect people that may not have been connected before, bring and automate all of the parts of the process online means that for the people who are comfortable, I mean, my mom still writes checks. Right,
Yeah.
like I'm lucky if I can get her to go to an ATM. But for the people that are comfortable in technology, having them embrace technology has really pushed commercial real estate forward during this time period. We're still seeing deals get done. We're seeing deals, big $100 million deals get done. We're still seeing people take advantage of the opportunity of finding spaces that maybe they wouldn't have before. Whenever there's an opportunity to trade or transact, then there's an opportunity for somebody, and we're seeing people actually use this time during COVID to find opportunities. We're seeing restaurateurs finding new spaces for second locations that maybe they wouldn't have been able to do before. So there's still some parts of businesses that have been really spurned on by some of the activity during COVID.
Yeah, there is an inherent speed, I think, to be able to tour online, transact online. I see what you mean. There's absolutely some good that's come out of this insanity of a year.
And I think people are also much more comfortable connecting online. So creating new connections. I mean, I was terrified of Zoom a year and a half ago. I didn't want to be have my picture up there constantly. And like, now you've seen me, no makeup, sweats, whatever it takes at any time of day. And we're all comfortable and we've become more comfortable with the people who are in business and are participating online and become more
Mhm.
comfortable with it. There's there's the idea in psychology of repetition compulsion. So if
Sure.
you continue to do the same thing over and over, then it becomes much more comfortable over time. And meeting new people, not at the bar, but on the screen has become sort of second nature to our industry, and it's a great way to do it because then we are creating the opportunity to transact across markets, regions, countries, across the globe, and we have seen a lot of inbound from international investors, and I think that's really a testament to some of the work that's being done here.
Absolutely. I think I saw something today about listings in Aruba.
You did see something about listings in Aruba. Yeah, we have several in the Caribbean. We have a few in Guam. We have some in Canada. And we have some in some other markets. We also have a lot of inbound interest from foreign money. And I think that's really an interesting thing to note as well, where that may not have happened previously because
Sure.
the US commercial real estate market was really US focused and US centric. We are in a place where that is where we're pushing those boundaries.
Mm. Yes. So, what can the CRE starting that over? So, what do you think the commercial real estate industry can learn from other sectors in terms of, bringing their marketing strategies into the digital age?
It's interesting. People are really focused on things like search and do you appear on top of the page and how many leads do you get? And I think one of the things that we're doing at Crexi and we're really pushing, or perhaps I'm really pushing hard, is that it's really about quality over quantity. So we can cheaply go find hundreds or thousands of people that might be interested in a property, but really there's only one person who's going to lease that space, one person who's going to buy that property. Now, of course, you want a few people because you want to, foster competition for that particular space. So it's not really about finding the one needle in the haystack, but it's finding like those three or four needles and quite frankly what can be a much smaller haystack than it used to be so that we continue to drive industry but
Mm.
close deals faster faster. So we're not wasting people's time fielding questions or concerns about a property for somebody who's never even going to interact with it or transact on it. With that, I think technology has also created an opportunity for people to see things online and view spaces online and get more information online where sites like ours allow people or enable people to put as much information as they want to um, on the listing page, and be able to answer more questions than they could in just a traditional flyer. So we're giving people we want to save everybody time. We want to put all the right information out there. We want to make those matches sooner. And instead of going out to all of the people, it's really about finding the right people.
Right.
And then the other thing I'll add to that is it's also about contacting people when they can and want to be contacted. So, text messaging, SMS, notifications. So we launched our app, our iOS app, last month, and people have been asking for it for a long time. And the reality is, it's amazing, and the inbound that we're getting from it is amazing because that's how people are used to interacting with each other and with work and with, social and with all different kinds of information and with news apps. So we're literally alerting people when there's an action to be taken for both business on the broker side and then also on the potential buyer tenant side for properties. So there's a tremendous amount that we're learning from that as well. But
Mm,
again, quality over quantity, making the right connections faster, having the information out there, and then also letting people know that we exist, right?
right. Speaking of quality, and anyone who works with you or for you knows that you are such a lover of data. I would almost make it your middle name. But we know obviously there's a rise in, availability of data in CRE. And I'm wondering what you think around, how CRE professionals can sort of creatively use this to market their assets to the right buyers and tenants, just as you were mentioning.
Yeah, I think when we look at data or we consider what data can do, they're two different things, right? There's like reporting on data, so there are comps in the space. There's what this traded for, what that traded for, but no property is exactly like another property, and so you can look at things. That's why they're called comparables, because they're just something that's similar to. I think telling the story for brokers to be able to tell the story to customers and really um, help them understand the value that they're getting, where they can look at different data points as opposed to just a comp on a building size
Mm,
and shape and location. We're looking at traffic counts, and we're looking at population, and we're looking at all these different factors that, if you're a storefront, should be taken into consideration and aren't always easily available. So when we're building out data at Crexi, we're really trying to, give a wide swath of information on all the different properties and the areas and the demographics, and going beyond just the physical building or space, and really talking about the area that it's in and what that area has seen in terms of growth over the past X time period, and what other properties in other markets look like during that time period. And so if this is better or worse than other markets. So it's not just about your neighbor next door, very similar to how, to finding your buyer by standing on the rooftop and shouting their name. Um, we've gone beyond that to create national data sets, or data sets nationally that people can use to tell the story of what that type of property is doing and why it is a good opportunity. The other thing I'll add is that it gives a huge opportunity for people who are used to transacting in a particular market or area,
yes.
and
Yes.
to actually go outside of that market or area. So, if you are going to buy a mini mart in one market and you haven't ever gone outside that market, you can look at mini marts in other markets now. You can look at gas stations in other markets right now. You can look at industrial property, land, and you can feel confident in the decisions that you're making because you've got the information right there, or the brokers have the information right there to be able to serve to any potential buyers as well. So there are just many more choices than there ever have been in the past.
Yes. A blessing and a curse, but mostly a blessing.
Blessing.
Mostly a blessing. So, slightly shifting gears, as an executive at a CRE technology company, we know obviously you're very, very passionate about the culture and the growth of your team, of our team. So, in what ways do you think you promote growth within Crexy's marketing team specifically? And then, really, how does that contribute to the overall success of the org?
Ooh. Uh,
Small question.
yeah. No, I love that. Um, I've always been very lucky to work for very strong leaders who've taken a chance on me in a lot of ways. Going from college to running marketing at a footwear company before I was 30 was a little bananas. Going, and then going to agencies and running big businesses when I'd never worked at an agency before was a big leap of faith. And I think I everybody probably would have been better off served if there was more of an informed leap of faith. So we're talking about like 15 and 25 years ago. But I think personal development and keeping people interested so they don't feel like they're just coming back to the everyday grind over and over again are incredibly important. I think it's incredibly important for us to put learning on the roadmap. So everybody, as you know, everybody in our team has are required quarterly to take some sort of learning or growth course or to do something that is outside of their comfort zone, something that they're interested in. So for Shanti, who's our amazing producer here, maybe it's learning about cutting music in a different way than she has before. For you, maybe it's taking a class on organizational psychology. I don't know, but it's doing, for the people that haven't worked deeply in media and are on the sales side, it's taking a marketing class. But something to explore things that we don't get the time to explore. And honestly, it sounds ridiculous, but by mandating that through work,
Mm.
then people actually take the time to do that instead of maybe watching The Circle. I don't know.
I watched The Circle.
I know you watch. I do too. So I think for me that's a big piece of it. I think bringing people in from different organizations. Crexi was built by brokers for brokers in the industry. We have some real powerhouses in here. I think we've done a great job in marketing of bringing in exceptional marketers and really being able to build out the marketing team. Some people have needed to learn commercial real estate. Some people come from it, but having that balance is incredibly important to me and creates diversity across the organization and diversity of what we can bring. If you look at our team, we look very different. We come from different backgrounds. We have had different opportunities in life. We have different personalities.
Definitely.
Sorry. We have different personalities. And, I think all of that and learning to work together has helped growth across the board. I also think giving people opportunities, right? So promoting from within, giving people who've never managed before people to manage, and then helping them learn that. And for me to be able to be a resource and an advocate and really a mentor to anybody across, whether it's in marketing or outside. I have a lot of, weekly sessions with people outside of the marketing org, just for advice and feedback has always been incredibly important to me. And at the end of the day, my kids always joke that I should have been a teacher, but I don't have the patience. But I think for Crexi, like helping people learn and quite frankly, thinking about the psychology of what they're doing and working on and how to present something, and what the storyline should be, which is what I've been doing my whole life, is really a skill that can be learned and honed and isn't often focused on. So it gives me great personal joy to be able to help people move forward on that journey and find their voice.
Absolutely. So you did speak to this a little bit, but kind of circling back, what sort of specific qualities in an employee would you advise other leaders to build around when it comes to assembling a successful marketing team?
I mean, you know this better than almost anybody on the team, but don't hire people with exactly the same skill sets that you have,
Mm.
right? Always have complementary skill sets. I love that you're doing this interview, Lilah, because as you know, you came on board at a time where we had so much inbound requests from all the different parts of the organization. And, I've worked in Asana, I've worked in Trello, I've worked in a lot of different tech. I've worked in Basecamp. I've worked in a lot of different technology that's supposed to help bring order to the chaos of like inbound requests and making sure we have all the right information and really running the creative team and the marketing team and making sure that things are done on time. It is not. Let me repeat. It is not my number one skill set. And like I said, you know that better than anybody. And so, it's not just like calendars, right? It's like making sure that the department is actually running and humming. And you have to, I guess, said differently. So thank God for you, and thank God for you for the whole Crexi organization. Said differently, you have to recognize and know what you're good at and what you're not good at. And it's okay to not be great at everything. None of us are great at everything. So, bringing people in that know different things, have different skill sets and different, um, not just skill sets, but approaches and
Yep.
perspectives on things are incredibly important to building out the right team. The other thing is, marketing can be tricky, just like product, just like sales, just like ops, just like anything can be tricky. And so, advocating for yourself is the other piece of it, right? So, there are times when we've had long conversations about what the marketing team looks like and what the skill sets should be. And at the end of the day, I do know how to build a team, and I have had the fortune of bringing on an incredible world class marketing team. In the past 2.5 years, but really advocating for the roles that I felt we needed, or quite frankly, the people that I felt we needed at any time. And with that is understanding, or also maintaining flexibility. So
Hmm.
it sounds insane to say advocate and maintain flexibility, but I also believe that if I've been hiring people for 25 years, so if I find somebody that I feel would be an asset to the organization, you don't pass on that person, right? You have these phantom roles or positions that are open, so you find a role for the person if you know that they're going to legitimately make an impactful difference, and then you can always hire around them whatever the other skill sets are that you need to sort of plug in there.
Wow. Courtney Ettus serving so much knowledge on this sunny day. These tidbits are actually free. This is insane that this information is free. So, obviously, Courtney, you got a lot of chutzpah. I think that's maybe a quality that you look for in people you hire as well. So, how can commercial real estate marketers specifically, or sellers, replicate that kind of chutzpah on their own teams and kind of in their own businesses?
I mean, you got to believe in the people you have around you, right? And open, honest feedback is the other piece of it. So if you're not getting something from someone that you expect, or somebody's not operating in the way that you would think, or you know, uh, be open and honest with them. Open and honest when you're hiring people about what the expectations are. Like if you want somebody to take out the garbage and you don't tell them that you want them to take out the garbage, and then you ask them to take out the garbage, there can be a problem there, right? And it may be your problem, it may be their problem, but there's going to be a communication problem. And so, just having it, as you know, we have very open and honest communication on the marketing team, and I think that is a testament to the way that the overall team runs, but also that we can have, arguments are not fights; they're disagreements, and we can move through them and find solutions to them, as opposed to like being angry or hurt or taking it personally, or not finding a solution, which is really the worst thing you could do for the business. So I think, really believing in the people and the people that you have around you, and you guys, as some of you have accused me of being overly optimistic, uh, which may or may not be true. Some people will think that's insane. But really, really thinking that people have the best intentions first is a really important piece to the overall staffing conversation.
Hmm. I think that's something I've also relayed to pretty much everyone we've onboarded since you hired me is that you're here because the trust is given to you from the start,
Hmm.
right? You're not
True.
here to earn trust. You're here because you are trusted. And, let's see what you can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Miss Courtney, do you have any final thoughts around digital marketing in the commercial real estate industry?
I think about myself 20 years ago, thinking through like having to learn digital and how frightening that was to me, and then really leaning into it. 15 years ago when I went agency side, and like it's okay to be uncomfortable,
Mm.
and it's okay to not understand what works and what doesn't. But I think just as I would say for anything, like be curious, learn about it. LinkedIn Learning has some great learning solutions. There's a company called Udemy, which is an online academy. If you're not understanding something, I know that the three-letter word SEO can be daunting and people don't know the difference between SEO and SEM, but you can learn it. Just like you can learn how to make a deal and what to look for in appraisals that are coming through and what red flags you have in diligence. There was a time when people didn't know any of that either.
Yeah.
And so if you want to get good at something, it's marketing's really not that hard. I mean, honestly. Am I allowed to say that? Probably not. But it's learning, right? And it's learning and understanding the data. And so, there's always going to be opportunities, and things are going to change. And we're going to talk about cookies, and people are going to think, are those the cookies you eat? Or are those the cookies that follow me around? And things change, and they change all the time, just like they do in a lot of parts of life. So be curious, read. So the advice I give my kids, although I guess it's be curious, watch videos, and don't be afraid to ask. That's the other thing. As you guys all know, if there's a part of marketing that you don't know about, I'd rather somebody ask than presume that they can just like fake it till they make it. I think
Yeah.
that's a very old school way of operating, and I think being transparent, as you've heard me talk about a lot today, is one of the greatest keys to success in any career.
Yes. I appreciate those closing thoughts. These are things we really carry, on our team on a daily basis. So it was fun to get a chance to kind of dive in deeper with you. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you
Um,
so much for having
it's
me.
obviously been just great to hear your insights, especially on such timely and important topics.
Well, I appreciate it very much, and thanks for putting this together. This was really fun.
Thank you. So let me know, Courtney, where can people find you online if they want to get in touch?
Honestly, the best place to find me online is my email. Don't laugh. Courtney at Crexi, CREXI.com. I work a lot, proudly. So that's the best place to reach me.
Perfection. Well, thank you again. And thanks to everyone who tuned in today. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to not miss the next one. Visit go.crexy.com/podcast and sign up to get the very next episode delivered straight to your inbox. Of course, you can also subscribe to the Crexi Podcast on your favorite podcast app and check out our YouTube channel for video recordings of each and every episode. Goodbye, everyone. Stay well and be sure to tune in next time.